I realize that this is going to be controversial. This will be more controversial probably than if I talk about landlords, rent, and home buying. It's more controversial than talking about Israel and Palestine and Hamas and everything. It really is. I don't know why, but it is. So, N.A.R, the National Association of Realtors, ladies and gentlemen. What does this decision mean and how did we get here? So, let's talk about this. So this is the N.A.R, right? Not the N.R.A. Okay, the N.A.R, the National Association of Realtors, right? So what we ended up getting was that these guys represent some of the largest real estate brokers in the country. Now, this was a jury in Kansas City. This was a lawsuit that was brought forth by people in 3 different states, okay, in that area. I think it was Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri, I believe. I double-checked that. But what happened is they basically said that real estate agents have been colluding to not have the best interest of buyers and sellers when they go to represent them and make a house, and they've been making a killing off of it, okay? So what does this mean? All right, so generally speaking, when you hire a real estate agent, okay, the idea is you're hiring a real estate agent to sell your home. Now, what do? They put your listing out there, they take pictures, they draft up contracts. It's a lot of stuff that you could technically do on your own, but you're kind of like paying for the convenience. Also, the quiet part being said out loud is that there is, allegedly, you might not be the first to populate on some of these websites if you don't use a real estate agent. So when people are looking for a home, they won't exactly find yours first, allegedly. Okay? All right. What are the positives of having a real estate agent? They take care of it for you. They have experience. They can do open houses and showings for you, the whole 9 yards, right? So having a real estate agent is really important. I'm not saying don't have one, right? Like a lot of people, some people do it on their own because a lot of the templates for contracts and for you know, a lot of the stuff you can get for free through your state website or whatever, but it's peace of mind. Generally speaking, the selling agent collects, you know, about 3%. Now that changes depending on what type of home and what type of agent and what kind of, expertise they have and track record they have. But the selling agent usually collects 3%, right? So if you have a $700,000 house, okay, $21,000 worth of that money goes to the selling agent. Now, some people say that when housing prices were more reasonable, it made more sense, but they're doing the exact same amount of work. But because the housing value goes up, they're making 50% more money, and that's bull, right? There's an argument there. I get that argument, right? Like if you were selling this house 2 years ago and you're selling the same house now, why you're doing the same amount of work? Why are you getting more of my money for my home because you're not doing any more work? Regardless, that's kind of where it was. That's not what this lawsuit was necessarily about, okay? Okay? What it is that they were alleging, and apparently the court has found that it is the case, that they were colluding with the buying agents as well. Okay, now the buying agent really doesn't do much compared to a selling agent, right? A buying agent basically goes on MLS, puts in your criteria. They find the ones you like, you say it, they reach out, they get time for open houses or the codes for the thing, and they walk you through it, right? And then they do a lot less work than the selling agent. But because a lot of these buying agents are representative or work closely with the same companies that have the selling agents, they were able to also get 3% of the sale. Now, whether that was attached to the purchase price and then kicked back to them, or it came out of the thing, whatever. So now 6% total of the selling price's value was going to 2 agencies. That means, in this case, $42,000 of your home was going to these agents. That's a lot of money when you're selling a home. Why is this a big deal? And why did Zillow and all, you might say to yourself, well, why did Zillow and all these companies fall? Because this is also going to affect home prices. Why? Let's talk about this. What is collusion, right? Collusion is when 2 entities work together to fix something or to raise a price or to make, whatever, to make an advantage, right? Without making it common for everyone involved or everybody to have that knowledge, okay? So this became a problem. Why is it a problem? It wasn't just a problem because of how much money was going out, it also did not give an incentive for the buyer agent to find the buyers of a house the best property for their value. The more expensive of a home they get you into, the more money they make. So they're less likely to show you houses that are worth less, or houses that are more in your budget, or in some cases, they're less likely to even try to get you to negotiate the value down. Like, there are some real estate agents that will look at a comp set for you and say, hey, listen, they're offering this much. It's been on the market for this long. I think that you could get it for a better deal. They're not going to bother doing it. Why would an agent who's making 3% of the final sale try to tell you how you can get more off? Let's say you're convinced you're going to buy it, right? You're convinced you're going to buy it. This is the house you like, but it's a bit pricey. They're not going to go out of their way to tell you, hey, you could get the seller to cover closing costs. They seem really motivated. It's been on the market 90 days. We should try to negotiate closing costs with you, or we should negotiate this fee out of the purchase price. That way they can cover it, or you can cover the payment, but you're getting it out of your purchase. They're not going to do that because it takes away from their commission. Now, I'm not saying that this is good, or this isn't good for some people. Like, independent real estate agents, they make their bread and butter doing that. That's not the point. The point isn't that they're making a commission. The point is that they're colluding with each other to screw over everybody else, or in this case, to not have that fiduciary obligation. Right? Like a car salesman, exactly. So think about that, for example. If you're a fiduciary and you have a responsibility to do what's in the best interest of your client, then you're not doing that here. I'm not saying all real estate agents are fiduciaries. I'm just saying there is no fiduciary responsibility. And so in this case, they're screwing people over, right? Not all of them. Again, before you attack me in the fucking comments, remember, I'm talking about the large companies, right? These large companies, the ones that are having to pay a $1.8 billion fine. It's not every real estate agent that's paying this fine. It's these companies, because they were playing both sides of this right here. So there was no obligation or no incentive for any reason to help out the seller or the buyer. They want to maximize the sale price, not for the seller, but for their own profits. And they were working together. And if you think I'm just saying that, no, this was the actual judgment. You say to yourself, well, Stocky, if they don't have an incentive, why are they going to work? There's an incentive, but it's about the true incentive and not about them working together. We saw Zillow, Redfin, all of those companies fall out of the sky yesterday on this, because there is a big concern that agents are not going to work on getting the price higher or selling the higher price, which is going to lean on a lot of that residual income for some of these companies, okay? 2 weeks of testimony. They ordered $1.8 billion in damages to the sellers, right? Not even the buyers, but to the sellers of more than 260,000 homes in Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. Okay, this is one class action lawsuit. Now, Redfin, if you think this is just conspiracy shit, Redfin had a similar thing happen a year or two ago, and they quietly settled out of court. They didn't appeal it, and they settled it for all future lawsuits. The N.A.R., they're a little bit more ballsy, apparently. They plan to appeal it. Why is that dangerous? Well, because if not only losing this initial verdict, it opens the floodgates for class action lawsuits all around the country if this to happen against them and others. But here's your word of the day for those of you guys who don't follow like tort law. They are open to treble damages. If you're familiar with tort law, you have things like punitive damage, and stuff like that. So like, let's say you get in a car accident and you sue and you get the value of the car, but you also get compensated for time you missed in work, medical, and let's say you have PTSD now, right? Like, you're scared to get behind a car and it's going to with you the rest of your life, and it's going to physically or mentally affect you in the quality of living the rest of your life. They put a price tag on that and they give you those damages, right? Treble damages. This basically means that this judgment of $1.8 billion can potentially go up 3 times. So the verdict came out and there's an award, but they still have to go before the judge or before, depending on the state, sometimes a grand jury or an appeals case for the actual damage amount. This is the initial amount awarded, but because they're allowed, or they qualify in this case for treble damages, this can actually go up 3x. That means that they can be awarded up to 3 times that. So it could go high as $5.5 billion, all right? Now, the N.A.R. is appealing. Keller Williams the spokesman for their company said they're considering appealing. I think they're going to wait to see what happens with N.A.R's appealing. Now, granted, this is going to take a long time for this to be completed out. They're going to have appeals. They're going to have hearings. They're going to have everything. It's going to take several years, just like every class action lawsuit. And I think a lot of people are going to sit back and wait on there. Okay. But the big thing about here is broker commissions. Okay. And it's basically how much the seller is paying to these guys. And that was what was behind this. Okay. Some are saying that, well, the seller commission makes sense, but the broker or the buyer agent doesn't make sense. Or if the seller's taking 6% and then breaking some off to there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I haven't seen the full transcript. I'm just giving you what the case was about. The biggest complaint was that this artificially drives up the value of homes. Because if you have the seller and the buyer colluding, seller agent and the buyer agent colluding, and at least that's the verbiage that was used in the case, to get as much money as possible, they're not going to negotiate down the price. The selling agent isn't going to try and work with the buying agent to bring down the price to sell the home. They're going to say, this is how much it is. And the buying agent's going to be like, well, that's how much it is. And then that drives up the price, drives up the comp set, drives up the price. In 2020 alone, residential real estate commissions were $85 billion. This has been going on for years. Yes, it has. I'm just giving you what the information is. Obviously, I understand the frustration here, but at the same time, I'm not all on board like, yeah, fucking down with real estate agents. No, we need agents for a lot of people. Some people don't need them as much, but you need them. On top of that, they do a lot of legwork. They do help people, especially people who are very confused by the process. And we want people to make money. We don't want just a couple corporations to run everything. We want, there be incentives for good real estate agents to come in there, but there's also accountability issues. That's the thing. So I'm not against people making a living as real estate agents. I'm saying that, because remember, I told you guys when I started this whiteboard, a lot of you guys were going to take this, talk about this major, large real estate company and organization and automatically think I'm talking about every real estate agent out there. Okay? You're emotionally tied to that. I get it. But this isn't about every mom and pop. This is about every guy who works for in the real estate company down the road, okay? Most of those guys don't have any connection to the selling agent. They're not making anything. This is just a couple large corporations, companies, and organizations that were doing this. That's who got attacked, okay? But it does set precedents, and it means that we're going to probably have more transparency, and it might help some buyers and sellers in the future not get over. Now, the seller obviously likes it because they sell the house for more, but they're also paying more. So if the house is increased by 2 or 3%, it sounds good, but then they're paying, more in the commissions. The buyers of homes were the ones that were getting the most, even though they're not the ones paying the commissions, the sellers are, so they're losing value. So they're losing out on that, and the buyers are having to pay more for a house. And remember, I'm not talking about every individual realtor. Please don't go out and find your local realtor in your neighborhood and call him a piece of shit. Like, we got you, scumbag. He's gonna be like, what? Like, that's right, you fucking piece of shit. You thought you were getting away with it. I got your ass. He's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? And then he's going to go home and he's going to start drinking, and then it's going to get in his head. He's not going to understand. He's going to think everyone hates him. He's not going to show up to work the next day. He's going to get fired. He's going to get in debt. His wife's going to leave him and sleep with somebody at a real realtor. His kids are going to start calling that guy dad. He's going to, and then he's going to, we don't want to get there. So I'm talking about the large corporations and how they were colluding, okay? This is not the first time this has happened. It won't be the last time. This has been happening a long time. But, okay, that's quite the fall. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Trust me, it doesn't take long. All right. Okay, let's, oh, no, they're not the only ones colluding. If you guys are saying, well, what about this and what about that? No. We're not doing whataboutisms. We could break down the other ones. But the one word we use on this channel the most, okay, the most, is precedence. And remember, I'm not talking about every individual, okay? Just like I have had to spend so much time breaking the mold of every stock personality or person in the world or finance person online for the past 15 years, and all they did was sell scam courses and promise bullshit and do all that. And I'm fighting an uphill battle. I'm not the same as those guys. I'm not saying every real estate agent is like that. I'm talking about these large corporations, okay? So please don't take it personally. And if you still take it personally, you probably have some more things you need to work on than what I can help with. All right, so we talk about precedence, okay? I spelled it wrong, but I don't care. All right, we talk about precedence. What does precedence mean? It means something is done, and then it sets forth that as as what we use as a guide for the same decisions in the forward or similar decisions in the forward. We talk about it in the courts. We talk about everything. This is going to set precedents, and it's already happened. Okay, this morning, less than 24 hours after the decision. Okay, the first thing we heard this morning, okay, was that there is now a class action lawsuit against corporate, like large company, large landlords, which is large property holding landlords, and RealPage for rent price fixing in DC. Less than 24 hours. So they're going after large landlords and RealPage over rent price fixing. Now, this is not your regular landlords. Back to what I was saying. This isn't your mom and pop who are having a guest house out back, or like were, had their starter home, ended up having kids, bought another house, financed it out after a couple raises, and have a secondary house that they're renting out. That's not who they're going after. They're going after these large corporations. Now, I don't mean the big scary names like BlackRock and Zillow and these giant. I'm talking about like the guys on TikTok who are like financing house after house after house and are fucking $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million in debt trying to finance these via short-term rentals like Airbnb or rent or whatever. Not those people. Going after these guys for rent fixing, because there's a lot of collusion out there. There's a lot of money to be made out there by, we saw it with Zillow and Redfin and others by listing prices. Remember when only a couple companies actually control, when they actually control the prices or what you see as the price, how do they not fix it, right? How do they not, or they don't have to, but how is it not tempting, right? It's like, think about Congress people, right? They get to see all this inside information. They trade stocks on it, and they made themselves exempt from getting in trouble for insider trading. Fucking smart, right? These guys don't have that option. They're doing the same thing as the politicians. They just don't get away with it. So this is going to set precedents, okay? This is going to set absolute precedents, okay? And so we're watching this stuff. And with realtors, now with the N.A.R., with this decision, and now with the rent fixing going in, we're starting to see it crack. Will anything change? No, they're going to pay some fines, and they'll find another way of doing it, and then it'll go down the whole thing, right? As a consumer, we are a collective, okay? And because we are all in our own bubbles and our own worlds and all around the country and all around things, we don't have, the ability to talk to each other and find out what's going on, or we don't have the time, or we don't have the resources to do it. And because of that, it's like herding sheep, right? If the sheep all got together and said, that little fucking dog can't beat the 100,000 of us, right? But each sheep is just like, oh, it could eat me. Let me get out of here. And this sheep's like, oh God, it could eat me. Let me get out of here. It could eat me or hurt me. Let me get out of here. And they're all collectively doing that because they're all individualized, right? Same thing. And I'm not trying to bring up like, let's start a revolution and take down whatever. I'm just saying like, this is why it's easy to do this, because by the time everybody's going to complain online, but nobody knows what to do, right? You got that one guy in chat who basically says, hey, Stocky, this is common knowledge. You're wasting our time. Sure, maybe common knowledge for you, but for the general population, it's not. And it's not because people are stupid. Remember, being ignorant does not mean being stupid. Ignorant means lack of knowledge. You may have a lack of knowledge just because it wasn't something that was taught to you. You didn't know where to look for it. It wasn't interesting for you at the time. You weren't a homeowner. It's just this lack of knowledge. And then everybody's playing catch up to learn. And what do? They lean on experts. And when the experts are the one that are hurting you or doing it, you don't know that something bad is happening. So, again, I'm not saying all realtors are bad. There's a lot of great people that are out there, realtors. If I go outside right now and throw this whiteboard, I will hit a realtor. Okay, that's how many realtors are in South Florida. And a lot of them are good people. They do it as a side income. Most of them make commissions. I remember when we actually used a realtor lady to help us find this place when we were renting it, right? When we were renting it. And she ended up getting like $250 off of the lease, right? Like she just made a small amount of money. She was getting $250 no matter what. So obviously she wasn't incentivized to spend a lot of time with us, but she wasn't going to try and f us out of our price, because it didn't matter if she got us into a place that was $2,000 a month or $1,000 a month. She was getting the same amount of money. So now there's a trade-off there. You want somebody who is motivated to help you because they get more out of it, but at the same time, you don't want somebody that is only in it to screw or to make you pay more because they get a direct amount. It's kind of like a financial advisor, right? Or a company that handles your investments, right? You want to find a financial advisor who works on commission. I'm sorry, not commission, on fixed rate. Generally speaking, okay? Very wealthy people, no, you don't want this, because then they're not going to spend as much time and effort getting you everything you can, because they're going to make more money. The more money you have, then you start paying for somebody who's going to do it, because then it's a whole other process. But for the vast majority of people, you want somebody who gets paid a fixed rate, right? Because if they're not incentivized by their company they get paid more if they get you on a plan that makes the company more money, then they're not gonna do as much work. But if you're generally the vast majority of population, you don't need, like, it's like, think about tax work, right? The vast majority of the population doesn't need a well-off CPA, right? But the more money you earn and the more you're trying to kind of like tax avoid, not evade, that's illegal, tax avoid, the more value you get for your CPA, right? Because your CPA is gonna help you find those things to save you money, and you may spend an extra $5,000 on them, but they might save you another $50,000 in income tax because they help you out. So it's a good investment. But if you're just a regular person that's just getting your W-2, you don't need to go spend $5,000 on a tax guy when you could do the software for free by just plugging in some numbers. You see what I mean? So it's the same kind of thing here. Like, if you go to a financial advisor, you basically want someone with a fixed rate, because you want them to just give you what's best for you and you know, at the time. They're not incentivized to screw you over. If you go to somebody who gets paid on a commission, they're going to do everything they can to make themselves as much money, and they make themselves as much money by selling you a plan that gives the company more money. That's what their commission is based off of. How much did your agent get when you bought your house? I actually didn't use an agent to buy my house. I knew the situation I was in, and I knew I had an advantage at the time. And I didn't press the person that owned the house that we were renting, and I didn't take advantage of anything. I just knew where we were sitting at, and our lender, because of whatever, was also a nice guy, you know, whatever, and that was it. The selling agent, you know, sent over the paperwork. We looked through it. I talked to my lending agent, you know, you can Google a lot of shit that you if you're buying, that you could. I'm not saying everybody should. Almost nobody should go without an agent. But if you're on the buying side, oftentimes you don't really. Especially if you already rent the house, you don't really need a buying agent, because we didn't need anybody to show us houses. We didn't need anybody to look up MLS. We already knew the house we were living in, and the contractual paperwork was done by the selling agent. And most of the questions I had that I wanted to double check, I found online, like with my inspection, which I ended up getting the inspection and the treatment negotiated off the price of the house. A lot of things. We really got a good job. But if you're like starting from scratch, yeah, you want to have a buying agent, because you need somebody to look at and do the legwork for you and do stuff like that, obviously. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have an agent at all. If you're selling, you definitely need an agent, because it's going to help. But in this case, this judgment was about the collusion between buying and selling, because they often work together to get the highest price for the buyer to buy as well, you know, because then they get more money for both of them, rather than the buying agent doing everything they can to get it, you know, in the best interest of the buyer by getting that price down. My wife gave me one of her cupcakes that I bought her. It's a s'mores, yeah. I'm putting you to sleep? All right, well,